I'm Noah Church. This is my video coaching series. I have a message that I'm going to share with you today, and we're going to talk a bit about extreme pornography content, how porn users tend to escalate into more and more extreme content, and how that can be damaging to people's self-esteem, their sexuality, and their self-image. So he says, "Dear Noah, I've been a long-time follower of your work on YouTube, and I've always been very impressed with your content." Aw, thanks. Also, being vegan just makes you that much more awesome. Vegans are pretty awesome. Perhaps I could start with my history. I started going into porn full swing when I was about 14 years old. That's pretty average. That's actually kind of late. The average of first exposure, the average age for that is 10 to 11. I started using porn when I was 9, 10. Number 2, I remember coming home immediately from school just so I could watch hardcore porn. I could sit down for 5 to 6 hours and orgasm like 4 times on average. I enjoy the rough stuff and do that with my current girlfriend when having sex. So your sessions might have been a bit longer than the average person. So that might have caused you more problems than most porn users have. We'll see that coming up. My porn taste is very extreme. Snuff, extreme domination, and stuff like that. Yeah. So what happens is we get so much porn, we're using so much porn, and that's a super stimulus. That's more sexual content than we'd ever encounter in the real world, unless you're some like emperor with a harem. And even then, you're not going to get the compilation videos like 20 women in a minute or two. So when we use porn that much, it overloads that sexual response system, and our dopamine receptors are deadened, they're numbed, they're desensitized. So the same stimulus that we see out in the real world, either porn or some other thing that we should want, like fatty foods or an actual woman, those are less able to stimulate us to want it, to want to act toward it. We're less impelled to go after those things. We get less of a kick, less of a rush. And in order to get that same high that we first got when using porn, we have to use more extreme content to blast our brains with more neurochemicals, to shock us, to disturb us even, to arouse us. Any strong emotion paired with arousal can heighten it to new levels. And porn users tend to need that in order to get that same high, in order to reach orgasm, in order to enjoy their porn sessions. So that's what happened to you. That's what happens to a lot of guys. And a lot of people, they don't get fixated on one fetish like natural fetishes tend to be. Like if you're a foot guy and you've known that you're a foot guy since you were a child, you're going to be a foot guy for your whole life probably. But with porn, the porn users after years of using tend to jump from one extreme piece of content to another category of content, another genre. And that's because they're constantly seeking that new novelty. It's the novelty, the porn, the internet that they're addicted to. They're constantly trying to reach new heights, to shock themselves, to disturb themselves, even as weird as it may sound, in order to get that arousal. I'm unable to get fully hard with a girl, and even with the most extreme porn. Yeah, you're desensitized. A real woman sitting in front of you, naked on your bed, just isn't enough stimulation for you anymore. Even the most extreme porn that you've been using isn't enough for you anymore, because you've used it so much, you've desensitized yourself. Now, I never reached the point where I couldn't get off to the porn I liked, but I certainly did not have sex as an option. I had porn-induced ED. My erections are 40% on average. I still am able to penetrate. Well, you're 25, man. Your percentage should be a lot higher than 40%. But I'm glad you're still able to be intimate with your girl. But it's definitely time for you to quit the porn and start the reboot, rewire process in earnest and recover fully. And you'll be able to have awesome 100% erections and awesome intimate sex with your girl. And read my book, my friend. It's called Whack, Addicted to Internet Porn. You can find it on my website or on Amazon or a bunch of different retailers. Paperback, ebook, read it. It'll give you all the fundamentals. I cannot pack all the information I put into that book into these videos. So you'll come to a much greater understanding of what's happened to you and what will happen to you in the reboot and rewire. There's also a complete guide to recovery. You've said you've had trouble getting your reboot going. You've relapsed many times. I have a lot of advice for you in there, a lot of ways to avoid the pitfalls that most guys fall into, how to learn from your mistakes, and how to really grow and change as a person and leave this addiction behind. Check that out and read that section especially several times. I haven't had morning wood in ages. Well, that will come back. I've tried rebooting, but I always fail. But I've taken note of my trigger points, and now shall stop. Good. We should learn from our relapses. We should learn from our mistakes and use that to build a better future. He says, in all caps, there is no going back. Great. That's the attitude you should have. You should be committed to this because obviously it's harmed you. And why would we indulge in something that's harmed us so profoundly, that's sabotaged our ability to be intimate with the person we love? I'm seeing this amazing girl. She's on the pill so I can actually have penetrative sex without using a condom. I am too limp for a condom. I used to be that way too. Now I can use condoms no problem. You'll reach that point as well. I'm usually at about 40% erection with her, so I can still penetrate her, although it goes limp pretty easily. And that's frustrating. It's frustrating not to be able to trust your own body to perform a task that should be as natural as breathing. It's frustrating. I know. My plan is this. No PMO. Great start. Number 2, continue rewiring by having sex, but I shall not orgasm. And that's called Carezza. I'll post a link to some more info in the description below so people can look it up. But that's, just as you described, having sex without the goal of having an orgasm, and with the goal of actually not having an orgasm. And that's a great way to preserve that intimacy, that sexual connection that you have with your partner, but without reaching orgasm, which for a lot of guys can set back the reboot process. I think it's a good plan. I tried generic Viagra once, but it did nothing for me. I just got sent samples of Cialis, so I might try it just to see how it goes. Most guys with porn-induced ED, they find that the drugs just don't work for them. And that's because these drugs, they open up the blood vessels in the penis and allow the blood to go in more easily. But our problem is not in the blood vessels, it's in our brains. So those drugs aren't treating us where we need to be treated. Some guys, it does work. I mean, it does make an erection easier, so if you're able to have that erection at all, it'll probably improve the quality of your erection. Do I recommend it? No. I recommend rebooting, rewiring, and getting to a point where you're able to have 100% natural, wonderful sex with your girl as often as you naturally can be able to. I think drugs like this, people can become dependent on them. Using them too often is detrimental to your health. And I just don't like unnatural supplements, pharmaceuticals, drugs, unless we absolutely need them. And you don't need them. You can do this the natural way, and that will be more long-lasting and more beneficial for you in the future. But if you feel like you need to use it, try it out, then go ahead. Just be aware that it could become habitual, you could come to rely on it, and you could build that psychological process in your mind that reinforces the belief that you need drugs to have an erection and to have sex, which just isn't true. Overall, I think my plan is pretty solid. What do you think? Also, based on my situation, can you tell me how long it would take for me to reboot? Like a guesstimate. Well, I can give you a guesstimate, but the range of time it takes for people to recover from porn-induced sexual dysfunction is very broad. Very broad. It can take a guy a week of no masturbating, no porn, and he'll be back in the sack and he'll be like, oh, my PIED is cured. It can take other guys months or up to a year. It took me months to be able to get to a point where I was able to have sex, and then close to a year to get to a point where I felt like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. I feel like I'm pretty much totally cured. Now for you, I think it'll take you at least a few months, because you've gotten to the point where not even the most extreme porn that you're used to can get you fully hard. So that means that you've hit the wall. You've really gone off the deep end. But that doesn't mean that you're not recoverable. It might take you a while, it might take you a few months, it might take you a year to get fully to where you want to be. But it's important to note that it's not just going to be one day, pop, you're cured. It's going to be a gradual process. You're going to see incremental growth. And it's also not a straight line up from like dead dick to happy erections. It'll go like this, but the general trend will be upward. No pun intended. Thanks so much, Noah. You're fighting the right fight, and take care of yourself. Yeah, I do this for all the guys out there who are experiencing the pain and the suffering I experienced having a porn addiction, growing up with access to internet porn. And there aren't very many guys out there who are sharing their stories publicly and helping people with this problem. And it's going to take sexologists and clinicians quite a while to realize that porn can cause all these problems and to raise the public awareness about it. So I'm trying to do my part. If you have a story like this gentleman or a question for me you think I'd have some insight on, you can send that to me, 3 to 4 detailed but brief paragraphs. You can find my contact information in the description below. If you find that these videos add value to your life and you'd like to express your appreciation, you can donate to me at addictedtointernetporn.com. Share these videos with other people. I'm trying to reach as many people as possible, so share them. Coach Church out.